Hey guys, welcome back to the Trelevate podcast. I'm so excited for this episode today because we're getting inside the secret of why Trelevate is so effective as what they do. And I'm joined today with our founder and president, Ryan Canals.
Thanks, Bo. How are you?
I'm doing good today. How are you?
I'm doing real good. It's Wednesday. Couldn't be in a better spot with a better dude. So
that's right.
Thanks for making time.
Absolutely. Hey man, we're talking about the secret of Trelevate. And what I've heard, and I'd love to ask you about this, is it's our relational communication. I've never heard that before.
Well, the funny thing is it's a combination of two concepts. So relational, which we all know that value begins with an appreciation for who or what is involved. So the relational side of what we do is where the beginning of trust and the beginning of to solve a problem starts. People work with people they like, and they work with people they trust. And if that isn't established early, you can have the best offer, the best solution. It doesn't go anywhere.
So people work well with those that they trust and those that they work with.
They like.
They like.
Yeah.
How do you cause that? How do you create a way for people to trust you and like you?
Well, so much goes into ultimately a first impression. Think about someone that you meet, be it, at work or at school or at church, and you get introduced to someone and immediately your eyes lock, and a lot of people, they have a tough time just getting out their name, let alone remembering the person's name that they spoke with, right? So there's a process of gathering information, but it's ultimately about that first impression, right? So the relational side of, great eye contact, great facial features in terms of a smile, the ability to remember one's name, because there's something psychological about hearing your name. Like, so Bo, if I say, hey, Bo, let me tell you about something that really works well. You're drawn in, and when I use your name, we're naturally drawn into the idea that our name, that means you want my attention, or it's important, so I need to pay attention. So the idea of getting the name, but then remembering the name, is the foundation of where a good relationship can get established. Yeah.
So a huge bit of kind of psychology behind sales.
Totally.
Is the name of a person.
Yeah. It's just people are drawn to hearing their name. And when it's used in a conversation like, Bo, I think that this conversation is really important because when it's used appropriately, we're going to connect on something so much more than just a topic or an idea. We're actually getting in the same space together, and that relational side, right? Teaching people how to establish that immediately is very important.
Wow, I'm writing all this down, Ryan. It's so good. Trust and being likable, first impressions, using your name. Everything. So how does that tie into, communication in sales?
Right. So the transition, and this is a balance of art and science, right? Great salesmanship isn't about being a fast talker or being about the guy that gets the deal done, or it's a lopsided approach where it works for me, but it doesn't work for you. That's a stigma. That's a stigma of poor salesmanship. In fact, that's where I think a lot of people get fearful of the idea of sales, or the idea of, wanting to learn about sales, because there's a lot of bad actors. There's a lot of people, no different than politicians, no different than lawyers, right? There's a stigma that comes like, oh, you do that, or that's what you do. Sales is everywhere. Everything is related to an idea, a concept, and then the addressable market coming together. I mean, think about it. Everything you see on TV, everything you read on the internet, social media, they are portraying an image or an idea, and they want people's eyes and they want their attention. And so we're being sold stuff all day long. Right. How we do it as humans, not digitally or through technology, but how we do it and understanding the brain, the way the brain works, and the way that people are drawn to who you are and what you have to offer, again, comes down to one, are you likable? Do you have a pleasant demeanor? But then two, do you have information that is relevant to help you solve a problem? And that's the relational side, right? But you asked the word relational, like what does relational mean? So to the point of a lot of bad salespeople, or let's just say average salespeople, are trying to get the deal done for them versus What if it was about establishing one, trust and likability? And then as I give you information, I'm not trying to waste your time, or I'm not trying to kick this can down the road or make this a long decision-making process. If I present the facts right, and then I have the ability to actually help guide you to a solution, in the way that we teach our teams to be able to build trust in a relationship, but ultimately guiding the customer by the questions you ask to get the transaction side done. If I ask you the right questions, I can identify I can help you or not. But it all comes down to asking the right questions. And when that's done, the transaction, right? Because I don't want this to be a 5 years to make a decision, or this needs to be 30 hours of your time to go do research. I want to be able to get to know you, present the facts, and if there's a need and I ask questions that push into that pain or push into that need for the service, well, let me solve the problem. So it's a combination of relationship building and a transactional type. I want to get this done by helping you make a good decision. That's the type of salesmanship and the way we teach people to operate here.
That's huge. It reminds me of, my dad just gave me this book, and it's called Go Givers, Sell More. Have you ever heard of the book?
No, I haven't.
Fantastic book. I have to confess, I'm only like 2 chapters in.
Yeah.
But that book, the whole goal is exactly what you just said. It's if you can give more, if you can provide more value, you're ultimately going to increase your sales because you're bringing value to someone else and they want to bring it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And people see through that. I mean, people see through that immediately in, again, the way in which you introduce yourself, the way in which you remember their name. And there's so much power in a name. And I can't stress it enough because so many people struggle with, just getting out the introduction, but not even thinking about who they're getting to know, and then ultimately better understanding who that person is before they're going right for the solution. It's like nobody wants to be sold. Nobody wants to be forced to do something. So first it's about, is there a mutual level of trust and likability? Now we can transition into the problem solving or helping get the solution or the problem fixed. Let's take care of it. And that's how we get great results for our clients. But it's ultimately how we help customers make good decisions and not have to dwell on it, not have to think about it, not have to go through an arduous process. Let's help you make a great solution. That's what I'm here to do.
Love that. I love that. So would you describe this as, this is our sales backbone, it's our sales strategy? How would you describe this as?
I think it's a basic tactic. Okay. I wouldn't lean into this as an incredible science or a philosophy. I would think of it as, how do I get the most out of getting to know an individual in terms of understanding who they are? Because I can't solve a problem for someone that I don't understand. But then think about any time that you made a big decision, right? Mm-hmm. Something that you had to change. Like I go back, what's a moment in your life where you're like, this is a big decision and I need to really do some research or think about it?
College.
Okay.
Choosing the college that I was going to.
Why?
Well, because the college that you go to is going to influence potentially the next 4 years of your life.
Right.
Who you're around.
Right.
What you learn and study, and the culture that college is going to instill inside of you.
Yeah. I mean, and think about that 4 years of time spent doing something with a group of people that ultimately is going to give you a degree and set you up for the next stage of your life. Right. Well, that sounds easy, but that's 4 years of your life. So you did research. Now, why did you land on the school you went to?
Because it hit the boxes I was looking for.
Right. But you knew what you were looking for. You did your research, right?
Yep.
Now, that's a life-changing type decision. It takes a long time. Mm-hmm. And the problem with a lot of people, especially business owners, people that make decisions for a business, is that they are very focused on something that they do or something that they operate or something that they manage. In other words, they have their day-to-day responsibilities. When we come in or we make appointments and sit down with a customer to walk them through a process, this, call it the product or service, may not have been the top of their mind. It's not something they've done research. It's not something they've really poured over data. It's something that if they don't trust you and they don't like you, they're not going to do business. So rather than looking at sales achievement or success as, oh, you're just a good salesman or a good talker, You think of it like breaking it down into micro segments of one, things you can control. How do I become more likable? I think simple things like what you're wearing, how you smell, your breath. I mean, these are silly. They sound silly, but you ever talk to someone, it's like, man, that smells like fish, or that smells like lunch. Like, I'm not talking to that person. And that's where the ability to think about how you're projecting is a representation of who you are.
Right.
So how you dress, how you smile, how you gather information will draw that person closer. And then, as I mentioned, when you understand how to identify, have you ever thought about how this product or this service works? I've already got a solution, right? We know we have the solutions, usually the best solutions in the marketplace. We just have to help make the buying decision easier. So it always gets easier when the relationship's established up first.
How do you help someone if you talked about when you know what you want and you're presenting that and you're coming together? How do you help someone who doesn't know what they want or don't know that they need something?
Well, again, a lot of times it's things that are relevant based upon the situation that they're in, right? So I asked you about school, right? And you're about to graduate, right?
I am.
Okay, so you're almost done with school. Now, a couple of years ago, this was a massive decision, right? And now you can look back on it, hindsight, and say, well, like, look what I've learned. Look what it's done for me. Look how I've grown, right? All the experiences. So a lot of times people's experience from a past, whether it's someone they've dealt with, a change they've made, or a decision they made, that can really, I could call it either pollute or jade the way that they make decisions going forward. So that's why I talk about trust being so important, because when I know, right, if I was to know that right now you're looking to make a decision for school, well, there's a certain step of what do you prioritize in a school? Like, there's certain schools that are going to create maybe a great football environment. Others could be a great education. To overlap all those in order means you have to create almost a prioritization list. Well, for a business owner or a decision maker, they're going to have to prioritize. How important is this on your scale of responsibilities?
Right.
Well, imagine if you didn't have to go do the research, or imagine if you didn't have to go find the data. I'll present it to you, and when the time is right, I'm here. And that's the idea of building, I believe, great trust when it comes to the marketplace is, again, who you're dealing with. Are they more interested in getting to know your situation because they make that decision, or they're going to make a decision, you're really only here to sell me something?
Right.
Okay, so first it comes down to the relationship. And then second, am I asking questions that lead you in an order that allow you to say, wow, you really understand my needs. You understand my situation. And then when I know that you have that information, that's when the customer releases that trust to say, well, help me do it. That's where a good salesman, that's where a good customer is established, is when the order of those things are done. And when we train our teams in terms of how they understand that process in the way people and process and ultimately the performance all come together, it's not a bunch of random events.
Absolutely. I think if you're presenting a need and whoever you're talking to, you're so out of touch with the operations that they're doing, you're not being effective. You're not helping tailor it to their situation, which is huge. Circling back to just relational communication,
Right.
Our sales methodology,
Right.
why Trelevate's so good. Is there any other, have you ever seen something similar to that out in the market? Is there another company that's doing this?
You know, again, I think every company has their widget or their process. I mean, that's what makes, it's like soup, right? There's a lot of different ways to make it. Add one ingredient, take one out, and all of a sudden you've got your own. But it's still a version of something else. And, you know, listen, there are amazing books written by incredibly gifted people. There's amazing companies that have learned a process of deploying a product or a process, and they've gotten really good at it. You know, we work with large public companies. And what's funny is they create a product or a service for the marketplace, but they don't create the distribution method. And the distribution method in our world is the people. So much about what we offer in terms of value to the marketplace, it's people. But it's people that have, one, an appreciation for certain components. One is, can I help you? Two, do I have a desire to really want to help you? And three, it's, can I guide you then to that solution from a competency perspective, I can be the nicest person in the world, but if I can't solve your problem, I'm just a nice guy. So it's the ability to have those components of, I think a lot of times it's core, it's what your beliefs are. And we go through a very extensive vetting process. Big companies don't have time to do that. We look at thousands of resumes to narrow down on the top few people. And then from there, we go through an order of interview where it's to get to know the person in terms of the way they believe, the way they look at people, their willingness to learn and adopt a process that helps them get great results. Because when they're getting great results, they're having a lot of fun.
Right.
And that's important. So what we do different, we don't necessarily build the product or the service. We build the distribution model. The distribution model is people.
Huge. So you're going to take this strategy, sales methodology of relational communication, and you distribute it through the people. And the way that you do that is how you train them and how your people interact with business owners.
Yeah.
Am I grasping it?
Yeah. And it's breaking it down slowly where you can actually dissect each stage of the process.
And is each stage, there's purposeful design behind it, or just like some things work better here and there?
Everything's engineered to understand there's an order of introduction. There's an order of relationship establishment. There's an order of needs and a needs assessment so that I can understand if I can or if I have no reason to be helping you with this. And then by then, how do you guide them to the solution? And that's really all that shrunk down to relational selling. It's all about people and all about helping the process move forward versus getting stuck. Why do you think a lot of people, think about how many people out there right now that have a cell phone plan, right? That they're paying for a phone that they pay too much for. They're paying every month for service that they don't need to pay that much. Why don't they go change their plan? I mean, I live in the world of telecommunications. I pay too much for my service and I know I should pay less. Why do I not change? Why do you think I don't change?
Complacency?
Yep. Complacency. Apathy. It's inconvenient. I got to go do something I don't want to do every month. I mean, that could come to the tune of a couple $100 every month. Just I could lower my cell phone bill. Why do I not do that? And I know this world. Think about the vast amounts of people that don't change because it's inconvenient. That's what we solve. That's the real heart of our business, is help them solve the problem faster. You don't have to go look for it. You don't have to. We already did the research. We know products or services that we offer top in the market. So if you're in a situation of like mine, let's call it in the world of electric, you're paying this for this kind of product, and we can help this bill come down to here for the same product, it's a no-brainer. We just have to help you understand how easy that is. And that's just one example. We could go to many others, high-speed connectivity, telephones, right? Products, healthcare, whatever. It's about guiding an individual to an end result faster than having either apathetically or just negligence. I just don't have time. All those reasons prevent people from moving forward.
Yeah.
What makes us different? Our people.
Wow. Ryan, so much good stuff. Talking about relational communication.
Yeah.
I'm going to trip up on that.
It's a tongue twister. You can only say it so fast.
You know what? But we're going to get better at it.
We will.
And man, you talked about how growing that trust, that connection, that first impression, how valuable that is.
Yeah.
And how, when you're looking back, you see the experiences that you have helping you to identify what you're looking for next. That's awesome. Where does this method find itself in the future of Trelevate?
I mean, it's one of many pieces. I mean, this is a small piece because it's really more philosophical. It's like, it's an idea, right? Hey, let's just get the word right, relational. What does it mean? Okay. And then what does it mean really then allows you to break down how is it applied? And that's really where knowledge transfer for me. And that's what I love about what we do. And our staff from one end of the spectrum or one end of the country to the other end of the country, it's really about knowledge transfer. So it's not just about getting the result, right? Because everybody wants the end result. Everybody wants to lose weight, get stronger, feel better, have better relationships. But sometimes you have to slow the process down and look at the effort that's going into each component behind it. And when you break that apart, I mean, our whole encompassing methodology which we have trademarked as our R-track methodology. And that R-track methodology is relationship track modeling. You want things to work great, you want to win the race, you've got to be able to manage each leg of that race. And again, we solve that problem through great people. Now, the next leg, which is process, the process that we teach philosophically, right? Everyday activity, what you're doing, how you're doing it, you break that process down. That's why we get great results. We break it down to a science.
That's awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time today, for passing on the wisdom to just everyone who gets to listen. Relational communication. I'm excited. I think I learned something today, something new. So thank you. I'm looking forward to our next time.
Hey, my pleasure, bro. It's great to see you. Thanks for having us.